challenge and honestly more dangerous than that. This has really become a textbook case of a live service hit getting trapped inside its own success. But before we diagnose the decline, we have to remember what Arc Raiders actually was, because the internet has a really short memory. Arc Raiders launched last fall and almost immediately became the rare extraction shooter that non-extraction shooter people could love. 92% of critics recommended it on OpenCritic. Gaming Nexus actually called it a massive achievement. The Structoid called it one of the most technically impressive games in 2025. It took home Online Game of the Year at the DICE Awards in February with 6 total nominations. And across PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, Xbox financial filings reported a peak concurrent player count of around 3.5 million. That's 3.5 million people at once playing a brand new paid extraction shooter with machine enemies and permanent for this sick genre that was supposed to be a niche genre, supposed to belong to the die-hard and weirdos out there with crazy monitors and insane games. I also realized that I'm probably one of those weirdos, but nonetheless. So when I tell you the game has fallen from that peak to roughly 90,000 on Steam today, I need you to actually hear what I'm saying. So it's still reflecting a good game on Steam right now. It is still ahead of Overwatch and Marvel Rivals on the quote-unquote is this game dead scale of 1 to Concord. Arc Raiders isn't even on that chart. What's actually happening here looks close to what most Steam community folks put down last month. The medians of 7 spots. Game's month baseline was actually around 250,000 stable population. The stable population for the game is a little bit closer to 160,000 on a good day. So the real decline, if you actually look at it honestly, is closer to 36%, not 79%. I don't think it's done. I do think the narrative is, and I think that's the actual problem, because the narrative around a live service game determines retention, reviews, and the pipeline of new players coming into the game, and whether creators keep making content about it or not. Right now, that narrative has escaped Embark's hands as being driven by the frustrated creators, angry redditors, and anybody with a YouTube thumbnail that sends about cheaters. This isn't really a profound statement, but Arc Raiders has a cheater problem, and Embark's handling of it has been, to put it politely, a journey. In mid-January, the Burnt Peanut, who is arguably the biggest Arc Raiders streamer on the planet, went live for just another routine stream. He was running with Folksy and Nick Merckx, and they got farmed repeatedly by the same point crowd. It was street around and just put to them. Peanut, who is typically a pretty loud and upbeat personality, fix this or I'm out of here. This is something that actually this is ridiculous. And if you're Embark, that is the sound of the biggest advocate of your game losing his patience on stream in front of his entire audience. Sometimes it's a couple of them. Embark's initial response was to ban the accounts for 30 days. I know, let me say it again. 30 days. People that are using wall hacks and aimbots to ruin live broadcasts for hundreds of thousands of viewers, and the punishment is 30 days off the naughty set. The Reddit reaction was exactly what you would expect. Eventually, Embark did these permanent bans, but only after the public pressure campaign, and at first only on the accounts called stream sniping specific content creators, which meant that if you ruined some random person's specifically the rest, you're gone. A very normal, coherent anti-cheat practice. And then it got a little bit worse. In late February, Shroud, the actual human being who again publicly campaigned for this game to be Player Obscure of the Expedition 33 for Game of the Year, posted a YouTube video calling the game bad and said that he was convinced that Embark doesn't actually care about exploits and cheaters anymore. So from Embark's perspective, your loudest public defender just turned into one of your loudest public critics, and you have crossed a very specific line. And then in April of this year, Ninja went a step further. He announced on a Twitch stream that he was done streaming Arc Raiders entirely. His exact words were, "I'm not getting on Arc, and I'm not playing anything else other than League." But to be fair to Embark, cheating in an extraction shooter is generally harder to fight than in a traditional shooter, because everything you lose is gear you earn. Every death feels personal. Every suspicious headshot isn't just frustrating, it is time down the drain. A former PUBG dev even admitted publicly that his actual job at PUBG partly involved manually joining Shroud's games and banning cheaters in real time. That was a documented procedure at a company several times Embark's size. There isn't a magic anti-cheat spell here. This is what has happened out there. And that's exactly where the real problem lives. Embark's entire anti-cheat strategy so far has been extremely reactive. They react to streamer complaints, they react to Reddit threads, they react to the bandwave outrage. The one thing you never want a live service studio doing is looking like it's always 3 weeks behind its own community. And right now, that's exactly what Embark looks like. Cheater problem is everyone's I get it, and it makes the great thumbnail. cheating situation isn't really even in the top 3 reasons why Arc Raiders is actually bleeding players. The biggest reason, in my opinion, is less exciting and a little bit more dangerous for the game long term. Arc Raiders, in the words of its own production director, does not have in-game content. Caio Braga gave an interview to Games Radar last month where he straight up admitted that the hardcore players they've been screaming about for weeks was kind of correct. Players who had sunk hundreds of hours into the game were actually running out of reasons to log in. And it's not because the core loop was broken because they mastered it, it was because they had extracted everything they wanted to extract, and there was no really next mountain to climb. And now, to Mark's credit, this is a hard problem for a live service streamer. And I don't think they've been lazy about it, because they have a 2026 roadmap called Escalation, and they've committed to a named update.